It's a pleasant morning here at Broadcasting House. Hello, and welcome to your favorite breakfast show. Good morning, Sarah Leone. As always, this program starts today with analysis and views on issues of national concern. We are your presenter. My name is Francis Barnett.
I am Sheikh Smaila, and our quote of the day comes from Scottish journalist B.C. Forbes, and it says, "It is only the farmer who faithfully plants seeds in the spring, who reaps a harvest in the autumn." Coming up in this edition of the program, Good Morning, Sierra Leone, as the government launches the 2025 Open Budget Survey report, we examine what the document reveals about transparency, accountability, and public spending. Also, in this edition of program Good Morning Sierra Leone to host the first edition of the Mano River Union Youth Connect Summit that seeks to unlock the region's demographic dividend by focusing on trade and agriculture, technology and AI, peace and security. All these are more lined up in this edition of program Good Morning Sierra Leone, reaching you live from our broadcasting house in Englandville in Freetown.
It's Good Morning Sierra Leone Live on TV, and you can be part of this program by sending your comments and views to the number on your screen, or you go to our Facebook page, slbc.sl. You can comment on the issues discussed in the program. And we now start the program with our first issue of the day, as the 2025 Open Budget Survey report has been launched in partnership with the Ministry of Finance, the Budget Advocacy Network, Christian Aid, the International Budget Partnership, and UNICEF under the theme Accountability at a Crossroads, Safeguarding Budget Transparency and Child-Centered Spending in Sierra Leone. The survey assesses budget transparency, public participation, and oversight worldwide. The report shows that while progress has been made in strengthening public participation and oversight, continued attention is needed to address the decline in transparency and mounting fiscal pressures, which may affect effective management of public resources. The 2025 Open Budget Survey shows that Sierra Leone scored 50 out of 100 on budget transparency, 30 on public participation, and 50 on oversight. Compared with 2023, the country improved on public participation and oversight, while transparency declined slightly. Despite this, Sierra Leone's transparency score remains above the regional average and higher than several peers, including Ghana, Nigeria, and the Gambia. In the studios with us this morning, we have Abubakar Tayawi. He is the Program and Policy Officer, Budget Advocacy Network. Good morning, Mr. Tayawi. Welcome to the SLBC.
Good morning.
Budget advocacy, you've always been following budget not only with government but even with public institutions. So now we have this budget being the Open Budget Survey report, which has been launched in partnership with the Ministry of Finance. So let's talk about what's your view on this report that is being launched.
So generally we see there is room for improvement when you look at the historical score. We've started participating in the OBS since 2015, and in our premier year we scored 52. But then when we just hope that this will progress upwards, in 2017 we came down to 38, and then we improved slightly by 1%. In 2019 we scored 39, and then of course in 2021 we scored 45, and 2023 we also achieved 55% score, 6% less to reaching the maximum score, or maybe the midway to the maximum, because for you to be considered as an open budget country that is giving enough public financial management information to the public, you have to score 61 and above. But then we could not sustain that progress. We came back down to 50 in 2025 by less than 5% the previous score in 2023. So it's a room for concern. And so let's look at what we are assessing when it comes to the index score.
Okay, so
budget
so before we go to the assessment, you just spoke about LEONE dropping a little bit. Why progress is being made in other areas, but emphasis is being laid on transparency and financial disciplines. What does this mean for Sierra Leone?
So budget transparency actually means we should be open in the way we run our public financial management system. When once there is a breach, then it tells in this course. So for instance, the transparency index assesses 8 key budget documents.
Okay.
And these documents include one, the fiscal strategy statement, which we produce on time and publish on time. The other one is the executive budget proposal. You know, after the budget, the bilateral budget discussion, this document is taken to Parliament for approval, okay? And then the enacted budget, after Parliament debated through the executive budget proposal, they will usually enact the budget, which often comes up with the Appropriation Act that will allow the Minister of Finance to spend on behalf of the state. The citizens' budget. This is the simplified, low literacy version of the budget that tells you how much the government will try to raise in the form of revenue, and how much is the government planning to spend on behalf of the state, and all of those things. And then the media review. This document is actually produced but not published. It was used for internal purposes. The year-end reports was produced and the audit reports produced. But we do not just look at the timely publication of these documents. We also look at the comprehensiveness of these documents.
Okay.
So how comprehensible are they? So for the pre-budget statement, we score 83, the highest, that is green, because that was, it meets most of the standards when it comes to how an ordinary citizen can look at such documents and understand exactly the macroeconomic outlook, the assumptions for revenue, and of course the expenditure. So it meets all of those benchmarks. The executive budget proposal, we scored 58. And this is where it surprises the most, because this is a document that is supposed to be scrutinized by parliamentarians and other people, and for it to be published without all the other necessary supporting elements. So we dropped some mark around that one. The enacted budget. This is the budget approved by Parliament, but what they do is to just publish a table and figures. So this document is not comprehensive enough for the ordinary citizen to just read and understand. So there we score 17. Of course, the citizen budget we score 75% because it is comprehensive enough. If a low literate person can look at the cartoons and you can tell how much the government plan to raise in the revenue and the expenditure and other, areas, then it means they can be able to understand the in-year report. We score 37 because the in-year report actually is supposed to have comprehensive data around the actual revenue and actual expenditure.
Okay.
But if there is a forecast, a projected revenue, and then we now need to know out of this projection how much actually came in the form of revenue.
But do you think over the years, and terribly, do you think over the years this has not been happening? For example, every year there's always a projection that it is what we hope to generate as revenue, and this is what we expect to spend. But then they don't say how much came in so far. In fact, year in year out, we see supplementary budgets. To augment, the initial budget. But in the area of transparency, that area is where we dropped. Because from 50 to around it is 35 or 40.
From 55 to 50.
So, okay. Now, if that is the case, then it means we have dropped significantly. Yeah. So, what do you think is actually responsible for this drop?
So, like I said, the people who are drafting these documents, majority of them are in the Ministry of Finance budget units. So they are supposed to make this document comprehensive as possible. For you to prepare the in-year budget, of course, you don't include some of these elements when you know they are the scoring point. I think it's down to them. But the acting director of budget actually made a commitment that they are going to make sure that they improve on some of these comprehensiveness issues that you have raised and see to it that they improve. And again, like you said, we take it on a case-by-case basis. For the 2025, the assessments consider the period through 2024, January to 31st December. So now we see that in 2025, there are some level of improvement with the PAC now looking at the Auditor General's reports and producing a report on the Auditor General's report.
But in general, the budget itself, even though, well, I don't want to trivialize anything, but the budget itself is a proposal.
It's a proposal.
It's a proposal.
So then
it is not hard and fast.
Yes.
That if we say we are expecting 50 million, that 50 million will come. It's just that is the projection, right? But so it is just a proposal.
It is a proposal, but that is why in the media report you are bounded to report the actuals that came in. And this is why we also follow track of the fiscal report that they do publish on a monthly basis. Because they actually tell you the actual revenue as against the projection. And then the expenditure as per the projection. So you keep track to know whether there are budget overruns or they stay within the limits. Because when there is a budget overrun, then there is a case. Because that means you have now spent above what you are expecting.
Well, have we ever, I don't know, probably you've heard or seen that in the history of this country's economic management, macroeconomic management, for example. Have you ever seen, a budget presented by a government? It does not necessarily mean this government that is balanced, or
no.
that is a surplus. There is always a deficit.
No, there is a deficit.
There is always a deficit.
So, yes, but again, you have to manage a deficit because presenting a deficit budget actually tells you the economy is not stable and there is a gap, meaning you have to finance this gap in the budget. So what you can do now is either you resort to debt borrowing, where the policy is now saying you cannot, there is a ceiling beyond which the government cannot borrow. But again, the debt should be concessional, meaning it should be a debt that is risk-free, that does not have liquidity problems, and it must be a debt that you can be able to manage over time, because the risk there is when you borrow in hard currency, the external debt, it gives you
but then as ban, if you do bad borrowing, that might have a short, medium, and long-term effect on the economy.
That's
So
it.
now,
Because
as
if you go for
bank,
non-concessional loans,
I need to engage a lot with from the Ministry of Finance
Sure.
and even the NRA. Now, are you part of some of these engagements? You understand, when it comes to preparing some of these documents, are you part of the arrangements to say, for example, this is what we intend to do, we are asking for this, so please, bank, can you advise us as to how we should go about preparing this agreement or arrangement, as the case may be? Are you involved in some of these?
No, we are not involved. We are completely independent from government. So what we do is to analyze some of these documents and offer our advice even before some of the debt are contracted. Because what the government has been doing, like you raised the issue of the budget execution report. In 2024, they actually produced a budget execution report, but at the end, which now gives a comparison of the initial assumptions, the projections in the budget, and the actual. And you can tell that a lot of issues came up. We have a lot of conversation around, overseas traveling and other things, the government incur expenditure in. But then for this 2024, in 2025, for some of these elements to now become suddenly absent, there is a credibility issue.
So Bakar, let's talk about what does this mean for the growth of the economy of Sierra Leone? And do you have plans to engage those in the ministry? Because some of these, according to you, some of the things that are not in our report are supposed to be done by those in the ministry, especially those in the area of budget. What are your plans to engage?
So we've started the engagement already. During the launch of the OBS, we empaneled a lot of people from the government side. We had the acting director of budget. From the IMF side, we had the country representative for IMF. From the UNICEF side, we had the chief, the CIO, who is also looking at the budget from a child responsive perspective. And we also had civil society organization, and even parliament, we had the director of parliamentary budget office, who also spoke extensively around some of the things that they failed to do. Like the media review, it is a report that they produced, but just that it was not published online. So the next line is publish online and do so on time, so that it's captured in the assessment. So that's just the main thing. And so if we are part of the space, most of the times, yes, we are part of some committees, especially on the committee on debt clearance.
Are you there to be heard?
The fact that we are there,
because the thing is that if initially, let's say for example, if initially you've been part of some of these agreements, or probably you are consulting areas, because you are the experts, you give the financial reports to the public, in fact, things on budget, it matters a lot. But then if you are at that stage where consultations were made and the final document, ends up in the hands of the donors, and now you see lack of transparency and you see a very bad deal, a very bad agreement, financial agreement, then it means you are part of the process.
No, so let me be clear in terms of debt management. That is what the government has not been doing over time. They have a debt management unit at the Ministry of Finance, who are the principal negotiators. So during such times, there are IMF conditionalities that prevent the government from disclosing some of the details of the loan agreements, some of the loans that they are contracted. So it is not for them to come and seek advice from CSOs what to do. So often when they now reach an agreement, there are some code of secrecies that they protect some creditors, terms of contracting there. So we are not in every committee that government forms when it has.
But you are in some committees.
In some committees, like the debt clearance.
So what do you do? What do you do in those committees?
No, in those committees, we give our technical advice based on our expertise. Okay, like in the debt clearance committee, we are there. Like in the PAC, we are there. So, but they need to take further steps up to see that everybody's shade of opinion counts when it comes to the final position they take on some of these issues. And the fact that we often do monitoring and we publish the findings, the analysis, it goes to tell you that our own approach is evidence-based to ensure that there is evidence first that we can use to point at the issue and tell government what we think they should be doing going forward.
But then, thoroughly, basically, have you at any point in time, tried to engage on why our budget is always in deficit?
So the deficit budget, post-war, we know that there are increased budgets, budget heads. Okay, when we keep having increased budget heads, we raise that in our budget credibility report that it affects the economy. Because increase in budget heads means the government will have to spend more. And that is down to the fact that they keep creating more ministries,
offices,
departments and agency offices, and they think might help them in delivering their manifesto or the government priority agenda. But at the end of the day, it comes to costs. Even when resources are not transferred within the timeline, it is due to the fact that government spend based on when the resources are available. If they are not there, they will not do any transfer, and again prioritizing some of the needs that they need to spend on.
So, Baka,
yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, so the fact that we have not have parliament sanctioning or even looking at there is an aspect in the budget that refers to any MD, before you can spend or overspend beyond your budget line, you should go to parliament for approval. That has not been happening. It tells you that budget overrun is an issue, and the Minister of Finance and other.
But then you also
entities,
go and cross-check. Now you are.
We cross-check. That is why we publish. No,
every year,
at
every policy hearing, at every policy hearing, you as CSOs, you are part of the known state actors.
Yeah. And we speak on
yes, you are there when budget ceilings are set.
Yeah.
In fact, budget ceilings are set by the Minister of Finance. Now, have you also tried, asking MDs as to whether they get their allocations on time? I mean, subventions. That has been another area, but that is affecting the effective and efficient, runnings or operations of MDAs. I mean, on timely allocation of, disbursement of funds. Do you also look at some of these areas?
Of course, I will refer you to our budget credibility report, which cover 2020 to 2022, where we cited evidences of government allocations and actual expenditure, and where we often miss the case when we have ratings, the PEFA assessment, you can score D+, C+, and all these areas. Because it all boils down to credibility issues. For instance, if SLBC is 10,000, and then come at the end of the year you only receive 7,000, then there is a 3,000 deficit. There is a budget credibility issue, because what the SLBC would have done with 10,000 cannot be achieved, because the budget did not come as it was planned or as approved by Parliament.
Okay.
So we provided evidence and tell the government where they need to improve. The moment we are able to score A and B in the budget credibility index, it will translate in the improvements of that aspect in the PEFA assessment.
All
and
right.
the PEFA is done by IMF and World Bank.
All right.
And so the moment you cannot able to move beyond that, it tells you we still have budget credibility issues and we need to go back and here.
Okay.
And to translate that also in the OBS, this is why the transparency score actually captured these 8 essential documents that can communicate clearly to the citizens how the government are raising the revenue and how they are utilizing it. So the shortfall within the gap is what we are now communicating.
So earlier I asked you, what does this mean for the growth of our economy?
So
before you
yes, what this means is that we are taking 1 step forward and 2 steps backward. Because if we are progressing as a nation, we say we have to be open, transparency in this case. It must be continuous. Don't go 1 step forward and you take 2 steps backward. 1 year you are progressing close to 60, you now come back to 50. It's kind of non-linear situation when you are making progress.
All right.
So again, the government need to see how they can work on it. It's not like all is bad or gloomy, but they just need to be consistent regarding how they report and how to be comprehensive enough in such some.
But why do you think?
And
Why
it's
do you
critical
think? Why
deadlines.
do you think government is challenged? Funding its programs and projects. It is that our economy is too small, but there is a need for expansion because economic growth is mentioned highly by, the GDP, that is the gross domestic product, and the per capita income. Why do you think government struggles, to fund its projects
So
and
the
programs?
size of our economy is small, even though when we base the GDP in 2018, the denominator has increased, but the per capita is small because when you look at how many people are gainfully employed in this country, and even those that are employed, how much is their take home, it's very minimal to say.
All right, thank you
So
very much.
the size of our economy is small, and we also keep losing resources for some of the critical sectors, for instance, the industry sector. In our year before last report, tax exemption report, we also raised this revenue in that report that we keep losing millions and millions of resources from the industry sector because when they rebase the GDP, the industry overtakes the place of agriculture, which originally used to be the key player in the economy. Because the industry has now also been redefined by so many players, sector players, and there are so many concessions.
But then there's also imbalance of trade.
Yeah, there's
Sierra Leone is buying. Sierra Leone is buying more.
Yes, yeah, but
and we are not exporting much.
we are not exporting much. So some of these things also play out in the economy. So you have to look at a number of factors to determine the growth of the economy as against not making much progress.
All right,
in
thank
that
you
direction.
very much. He is Abubakar Tarawali, and he is the Program and Policy Officer at Budget Advocacy Network. This is Good Morning, Sierra Leone, and we are broadcasting live from Broadcasting House, New Englandville in Freetown, and it's now time for us to look after our health. And for that, let's take our health tips. In today's health tips, we take a look at the benefit of fasting. You want to know which fasting protocol is right for you. Check out this video and learn from it.
If you're even remotely in touch with today's health and fitness trends, you've probably heard of fasting. But what's actually happening to your body during a fast? And how long do you have to fast to get the benefits? In this video, we'll look at the effects of fasting from the time you finish eating all the way up to 48 hours without food. Hey guys, it's Colin here with MindHive, an online learning platform teaching you how you can tap into your biology to live longer, stronger, and happier. We upload new videos every week, so if you enjoy the content here, hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up or leave a comment below. Before you experiment with fasting, quick disclaimer, you may want to consult with a health professional first. This might be especially relevant if you're pregnant or have a chronic illness. So about an hour after you finish eating, your blood sugar peaks as glucose from the food you just ate is swirling around in your bloodstream. Your body deals with this extra glucose by secreting insulin, which helps store glucose as glycogen in your liver and muscles or as fat in various parts of the body. After 6 to 8 hours of not eating, whatever food you did eat will have passed through the stomach and small intestine. People often notice an uptick in their energy levels at this point because their bodies no longer have to spend a bunch of resources breaking down food. Around the 12-hour mark, you are officially in a fasted state. This is marked by a significant drop in insulin levels since there's no longer any circulating glucose that the body has to deal with. When insulin levels in the body drop below a certain point, your liver starts converting fat into ketones to use as a source of energy. This further increases energy levels as ketones are a more efficient source of energy when compared to glucose. Ketones also stimulate the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, in the brain. BDNF, in turn, has been shown to stimulate neurogenesis, where new neurons and neuronal connections are formed. This is particularly exciting news when it comes to the study of long-term memory and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. All of these effects continue as the fast is prolonged, but around the 20-hour mark, the body starts producing endogenous antioxidants. Whoa, alright, now you're scaring me with big words, Colin. Don't worry. All you need to know is that these antioxidants reduce inflammation in the body, which can prevent chronic disease. Another process that occurs at this point is something called autophagy. Derived from the Greek language, it essentially means self-eating. Sounds pretty scary, doesn't it? But keep in mind that your body is incredibly sophisticated. It doesn't just start eating every cell in sight. It prioritizes eating the cells that are old and damaged. So the process is a kind of cellular cleansing, and might even be an effective means of cancer prevention. You shed the unnecessary baggage and emerge a leaner, cleaner version of yourself. After about 48 hours, levels of human growth hormone peak, stimulating lean muscle growth, greater physical and cognitive performance, and cellular repair. Now you might be wondering at this point,
Well, I guess you've learned a lot from that short video telling you about the benefits of fasting and some of the things that you need to know why fasting. Well, this is Good Morning, Sarah Leone, and you can be part of the program by sending your comments, views, and concerns to the number on your screen, or you find us on our Facebook page, slbc.sl. Well, Sheikh, it's now time for us to find out what's happening with the youths.
Yeah, the Youth Connect, and it has to do with the Mano River Union Youth. For the past couple of weeks, we've been seeing the youth minister active in conferences, talking to youths, engaging engaging youths. And the recent is the one held in Monrovia, Liberia. But let us talk about something that is being organized, and it is the first time it is happening in this within this jurisdiction. Now, Sierra Leone is hosting the first edition of the MIU Youth Connect that seeks to unlock the region's demographic dividend by focusing on trade and agriculture, technology and AI, peace and security, as well as other innovative solutions to addressing the pressing challenges faced by youth across its countries. The MIU Youth Connect Summit is considered to be both timely and strategic, as it will provide a platform for dialogue between young people and key stakeholders, including policy influencers, political leaders of the public and private sectors, development partners, and of the United Nations. Such engagement will not only amplify youth voices at the biggest levels, but also catalyze concrete actions that advance youth empowerment and regional development. Well, in the studio to talk more on this is the Deputy Minister of Youth Affairs and his party, Jibrila. Good morning, and welcome to the program, Mr. Jibrila.
Yeah, good morning.
Now, Youth Connect, just give us probably, we have read some, why the conference and the relevance, the importance to youth within the MIU. But then this Youth Connect, just give us a brief background to it. How did it all start?
Okay, thank you very much to young people who are following this program. Thank you for connecting. You, as the name implies, Youth Connect. We're there to connect. But this has been something we've been wondering what we can do as Sierra Leone to ensure that we also have young people coming to our country. Because in 2017, then I was working with the German International Corporation when Rwanda launched the Africa Youth Connect, where it was Youth Connect Rwanda, and after 2 years, it was widely accepted by Africans. All the youth ministers gathered in Kenya, they agreed that yes, there should be an initiative for Africa, not just for Rwanda or East Africa. So year in, year out, we've been participating, we've been going with our delegations, support from SOS, UNDP, and other partners and agencies. So after the second inning of President's Bill, I was privileged to lead 15-man delegations funded by various partners to Rwanda, Kigali. We're in a room, as the name implies, youth. I was the only youth minister as youth in the room. So I was very proud of that, and I was like the vuvuzela in the room. So when they want to take any decision, they will turn to me. Well, let us ask the youth in the room. So there was a bidding. So Madagascar bidded, and with another
to host this conference, you mean?
to host the Africa Youth Connect, because the Africa Youth Connect is also rotational. Year in, 1 year out of Wanda, then the other year, because the president wanted to go. So they will always leave it 1 year out, and the other year will go to Kigali, Wanda. So Madagascar won, but you know the issue Madagascar had last year, so we are not able to go for this Youth Connect. So I came back with a mindset, meeting over 1,000 people from Africa, and in fact we as radio, we went with the smallest delegation, but we had the most innovative people we went with. There was Maya from Kono, we went with other people who are very much innovative with their ideas. So we came back, I had a discussion with the then minister, Mohamed Oman Bangura, and he said, then what can we do also to make young people come to our country? We have also things we can showcase. So we think, our first thinking was the ECOWAS. We think that we should have ECOWAS Youth Connect, so we can bring all the ECOWAS countries together. So Sierra Leone will have premium on it. So we will do it like 1 year we'll go out, and the other year we'll come with young people around the ECOWAS country. But then, you know, President Bill was not then the head of ECOWAS. So round our head around that, and we think about the Mano River Union. Then we trace the history. We then realized that the Mano River Union Youth was an initiative from Sierra Leone by the then President Sheikh Stephen in 1980, and he discussed that with the President of Liberia then in 1980. And both countries realized that they share the same values, the intermarriage. We have almost similar things. Of course, you know now the current President of Liberia attended the schools in the eastern part of the country. So we had that, then we said, okay, the Mano River Union will be like something we can bring, because we have 2 Anglophone and 2 Francophone. So this is something we can also bring together. So we discussed, right away we discussed with UNDP. UNDP bought the idea, and we started planning around that. So we reached out to the Mano River Union Secretariat, and they said, oh, this could be a very good one, because knowing fully we had some projects we are implementing with Liberia and Guinea, that is the peace building projects we are implementing within the 3 countries. So sometimes we go to Liberia, I've almost always represented the youth ministry, we'll go to Liberia and they will come to Sierra Leone. We had it over and over. This year we'll go to Liberia, but not in Monrovia. Like we always did the last they came, we went to Bo. We want to explore not only the capital cities, we want to know the other places. So we'll be going somewhere around Maryland and Liberia, Monrovia. So I had a conversation. Then we started the planning. UNDP committed a fund to this. Then we started meeting other partners.
Okay, so
fast forward.
Mr. Minister, the conference is now happening, and you're focusing on AI, you're focusing on agriculture, peace and security. First, we know you have youths coming from the other MRU countries, but now let's talk about Sierra Leone. Who and who are allowed to attend this conference?
Well, like that is why I should have landed, because we have the Africa Youth Connect Secretariat in Sierra Leone. We are doing it under the big body. You know, they are here, the secretariat is there, and how they do it for Africa is what we are also doing. We just want to have our own union, like the MRU, to be in one room.
Okay, so you are actually working with the African Youth Connect.
Yes, they're even here.
Okay.
So like they did, that's the same thing we're doing here.
Okay, so you have to take us through that process.
Yes, we do the applications online. Young people who have access will go to university, will send it to. We invited various groups. We said we are having this program, but it is strictly online because we want to have the international standard as it is. Because the Africa Youth Connect, if we breach any standards right now, it is going to inch on us as a country. So we put the advert out, and young people have applied.
So how many people are you expecting?
So we are
from
expecting
Sierra Leone?
Well, from Sierra Leone, we are expecting over 500
Okay.
because since we are hosting.
Have you got that number?
Yes, we got a number, and in fact, people who applied, there are over 4,000 on the portal. So the process in which we used, we have the secretariat that are here. They've been here and they have a mini office that they work in, and you applied, you showcased what you want to do, what you want to gain, what are the new things you will bring into the conference, what is your expectations as a young person, because President Biya have learned me one thing, and he said we should not build the future for young people, but we should build the young people for the future. And that is why I am here today as deputy minister, and I sit at cabinet level. So with that, you have to also get something on the table. Then we in Sierra Leone, the Mano River Union, and also the secretariat, they go through
The Mano River Union has got an additional member, which is the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire. Are we expecting participation from the Ivory Coast?
Yeah, it's from the 4 countries.
But right now you are also discussing AI, and now we know AI rules the world. The AI, man, is now a trillionaire. First in the history of the world for somebody to become a trillionaire, and Elon Musk is one. And AI is what you are going to discuss among others. Tell us how AI, how are you going to discuss AI at this conference?
So, for we as Radio, we don't just want to discuss AI, we've started it already at the youth ministry.
Further discussions? Because
Yes.
we are not there yet.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So as a youth ministry, we had the International Trade Center that funded, and we have young people who've took to Man 91, and they have gone through so many training, coding and all the rest of it, branding, content creating, and they are actually very good in what
But
they do.
are we going to be exhibition?
Yes. So we
exhibition.
have, of course, that is in fact the third day. Each and every country, the 4 countries, will have exactly how they are doing their own various things in their country, and that is why Sierra Leone, who as a host, will be also displaying what we know about AI and the other things.
Now, let us know, because now I know the planning for the conference is far advanced, and you have already, invited, people to go talk, and let us know what are the personalities to be expected, especially at the opening ceremony. Those that will be making speeches, and what is expected of them.
The ceremony will be opened by His Excellency the President, retired Brigadier Julius Matabio, and we have all the UN rep of those countries, the 4 countries. They will be in the room, and a lot of personalities coming, and all the youth ministers. They are now bringing their delegations. As I speak, Citia, Liberia is on the way with their youth minister leading the delegation. Guinea is coming with their delegation, and also Ivory Coast will be flying.
So now let us talk about the expected outcomes, because at the end of the day, at the end of this particular summit, you are going to make recommendations.
Yes, that's the position.
So now, what are the expected outcomes? What do you hope to achieve from this?
Like I said, we don't want the agent to build a future. For young people, we want to build young people for the future.
But there must be specific. It cannot be vague.
Yeah, that is where I'm coming. So
let us go to the specifics.
So we will be talking about intergenerational. There will be an intergenerational dialogue, and also at that particular conference or forum, we will be discussing various. There will be various breakout sessions. Those breakout sessions will have each and every breakout session bringing a position paper. Those position papers will be compiled, and those position papers are the paper we want to use to actually have a project around it for the Mano River Union, because we want to have this integration as well. We want to have unity. We want to connect. We want to break barriers, boundaries. So at least you go to Côte d'Ivoire to go and do business as a young person from Sierra Leone. Maybe there's business in Côte d'Ivoire that is marketable, but the product is in Sierra Leone. We want to also break those.
But then,
so
are you also going to discuss now, one thing that is affecting youths in the Mano River Union is drug abuse. And Sierra Leone is no exception. You go to Liberia, the same. You go to Guinea, you go to Ivory Coast. So drug abuse or substance abuse is something that is actually affecting, the future. Now you spoke about building the future for the youth or building the youth for the future. Yeah. Now if you are to build the youth for the future and they are in substance abuse, that would be a hindrance. Is that also going to be discussed?
Of course. In fact, that is one of the topics that will not be discussed in the breakout sessions. We want to discuss that topic where everyone will be in the room. We want to have Sierra Leonean, Guinean, young people, not we at that level. Those people who are underneath. We want them to tell us what is the solution, and we'll start working towards that solution.
Okay, so Mr. Minister, my question is, how about those youths who are not fortunate to be part of this conference, but they actually applied because they wanted to be there, but because of your because of your threshold or maybe limited resources, you have the numbers that you will be catering for. So what will you do after the conference? Are we going to see a replication of what you've done in this Youth Connect MRU to our young people in Sierra Leone?
So what we did, we had the youth structure is one of the best structure in this country. We have the National Youth Council that has a president. These are non-political, and there is no chiefdom you go, you don't have a leader. So we have people that will be coming to represent. These are people we sent an invitation to without applications, because we want them like TOT. When you get this from us, you go out, because we are not just coming to have a forum like this and we have a chat, we eat, we dance. We want to have a feedback. We'll be going back to, let's say, Mongo, to see the youth representation from Mongo. What are some of the things you put together as a proposal?
Okay, so this summit is coming at a time when the Ministry of Tourism is very keen on showcasing Sierra Leone to the world. And you are coming with Liberians, you're coming with Kenyans, and also Ivorians to Sierra Leone. What are you doing in that area to showcase what we have as a nation, what we have as a country in terms of tourism?
So if you look at the breakout sessions, you see tourism and the creative economy is number one in the creative sessions, in the different breakout sessions. That is to say, we have each of the layers in the committee planning. We have tourism represented in the planning. We did not do this as Ministry of Youth. We do this like with every layers. We have people from the Ministry of Communication and Innovation represented in the committee, in the planning committee. We, as that level, we're not there. We have our director of programs that was superintending, and these were hosted. We had UNDP hosting all of these committees in a room.
So who are the speakers are we expecting, or the facilitators for this summit?
Well, we're expecting a lot of speakers because, like I said, we have the 4 country reps of all those countries from UN. They are coming.
Okay, thank you very much. He is the Deputy Minister of Youth Affairs, and he is Patrick Jibrila. Continue to stay with us in the program. He has been talking to us about the MRU Youth Connect Summit that will take place in Sierra Leone. We'll definitely talk back to him to tell us about the venue and how many days the event will be lasting for. But this is Good Morning Sierra Leone. Sheku, it's now time for us to find out what the papers are saying.
Yes, there are quite a number of interesting stories in the dailies this morning, and I'll start with the Independent Observer. The Independent Observer says the case for ratifying Aminata and Swan's concession. Well, Mr. President, can we talk? This has always been a call from this press, the Independent Observer. Also here is Sierra Leone needs tests of presidential aspirants in civics. Why Sierra Leone must invest strategically in its voluntary sector. These are some of the stories you can see in the Independent Observer newspaper.
From the Independent, we go to the Awareness Times. Awareness Times newspaper describing it as a sad day for Saloon. First Lady Fatima laments passing of APC chairman. Mauritania backs President Bill's call for greater regional unity. Also in this edition of the Awareness Times newspaper, Parliament commends private universities for expanding access to higher education. These are more, and of course, updates on the World Cup you find in the Awareness Times.
Yes, from there we move on to the Standard Times. And the Standard Times says, letter to registrar for readjustment of status. University of Sierra Leone saga. ECOWAS court convenes second meeting of competent national authorities to strengthen enforcement of judgments. These are some of the... Okay, now, there is a very, very interesting story here, and it has to do with the just concluded Paramount Chieftaincy election in Malin Chiefdom, which has been won by the Kabis once more. And these are some of the stories you can see in the Standard Times newspaper.
Well, from the Standard Times, we go to the Calabash newspaper. The Calabash newspaper, Parliament calls for stronger measures to combat rising cybercrime. And Vice President to engage global investment at high-level diaspora investment conference in London. And SLCAADG joins Rwanda and Togolese President Obasanjo at African Air Transport Summit in Lome. ECOWAS Chair Mauritania President reaffirmed commitment to regional peace, security and cooperation. And SLAG AGM, Guild of Editors, calls for responsible journalism to drive Sierra Leone's economic growth. And finally, Tony Elumelo backs ECOWAS Investment Summit as President Bio pushes regional integration. This goes with a picture of President Bio and Tony Elumelo. More stories you find in the Calabash.
Now, and the final, no, not the least, is the Eagle. They know the GL newspaper. The GL newspaper says Dr. Ibrahim Bangura, VIB, the moving train towards a new Sierra Leone. Also here in the GL newspaper, I am a son of the media. Here they are quoting Alhaji Samura, the current managing director of UBA. He was the keynote speaker at the just concluded SLAG AGM in Makeni. And the thing is that he's saying he's a son of he's son of the media. His father was one-time director of SLENA and also acting deputy director general of the SLBC. Mr. Samura trained a lot of journalists. You know, most of the journalists you see in town here today, including the Umaru Fofaners, these were guys trained by, Mr. Samura. Some of us also benefited from the mentorship of Mr. Samura, and his son was now the keynote speaker at the AGM, the SLAG AGM. It's like that's a good thing. And mark you, he has just celebrated his 80th birthday. I mean, the father of Alhaji Samura. So congratulations. And this is my final paper for today.
And the final paper for today is the Africa 24. Africa 24, Mikhailu's funeral. EBK back home. Embarrassing low turnout of MPs at ECOWAS meeting. The fact on the Aminata and Sons concession. No revenue loss, no tax waiver. These and more you will find in the African 24. And for those of you interested in sports, you go out there and grab these newspapers. You must be reminded that views expressed in these newspapers do not in any way reflect the views of the SLBC. We are merely reviewing what the papers are saying. This is Good Morning Sierra Leone. We still have the Deputy Minister of Youth with us in the studios. He is Patty Jubila. Now, Mr. Minister, let's talk about the venue for this event and how many days will this event last for?
So we are meeting, young people are meeting at Beauty Money Conference Center, and today we are still meeting with the young people today for tomorrow. We're starting our programs tomorrow on Friday, and Saturday you're going to see a lot of performance from young people.
But then what is going to be, let us talk about the representation. How decentralized, is the representation
from
going to
youth
look like. For example, like you said, you have structures. all across the country, from national to regional to district, even at chiefdom levels, you don't have representation, you have youth councils. So let us know how decentralized is the representation going to look like in terms of representation from across the country. I mean, because even though you said it is purely a portal system, we have people register online. But then based on what you've got so far, and tomorrow is the conference, do you see a spread? Do you see, balanced representation?
Based on yesterday, when I checked before leaving to receive our mother who will be with us for the second day from Lungi, it's a blend of Sierra Leone. It's a blend of Sierra Leone. And having gone through, we prioritized the disability community. Having gone through as well, we prioritize the women's group. When you talk about youth in this country, a lot of women think, as you say, young women. So that is why on Friday, Her Excellency the First Lady will be launching the Young Women's Leadership Initiative for the Mano River Union, because we also want to have programs that we target them. They'll come in a room and bring a position paper. This is our position as young women in this country. So that this is what we want. This is how we want our programs to be. It is not just about we. Because when you talk about youth, you think it's just the boys.
But then I know you have a lot of things to talk about, but then wait after the conference, you come back and update us on how things are going. Thank you so much for your updates this morning.
Well, lastly, on
you have to be very fast.
Okay.
yes, last day, the first day, the president will be launching the 50 e-vehicles. It's very innovative. Yes, as the Ministry of Youth, we have alongside with UNDP, we'll have 50 e-vehicles. That very day, we'll be launching a youth portal, youth employment portal, where we'll track now young people who are employed, who are unemployed, people who are less privileged or who has little or no access, the university people who some drop out of university. So the portal now will give you access. And we are now coming to our office, the new office for the youth house. We are now building the youth house, where in the first floor will be purely renovated and innovatively.
Where is that house?
At King Street, where the basement will only be for accessibility for young people, and we'll have computers, internet.
Okay,
so you will have to go, but I will not let you go without asking you this. All these programs are really good, but my question is, how accessible are your programs to youth who are not members of the Sierra Leone People's Party, or youth who are not members of families who are close to some of you guys?
Well, for me, if you're asking me, maybe President Bia has done justice to this country, because I'm from McKinney. Almost all my friends, if you ask the Youth League of APC, they're my friends. When I go to McKinney, every weekend for me, Friday, I'm in McKinney.
Okay.
At the Atabis, at the feed, we play the veterans games. So our programs are cut crossing. If you ask the Youth League, we had them in our office, the APC Youth League. We invited them.
So I'm not talking about the APC. In
No,
fact,
we're just
maybe
talking.
I need to say
Yes.
that they are not members of the APC, nor the SNPP, because
Yes.
sometimes, because you guys are, if I could use the word of Honorable Yunkela, Alusaina and Alasan, let's talk about youth outside the APC.
But then
and
the application was open. We don't
Okay.
even
No,
know who is.
I'm not talking about talking about this program now.
All of
I'm
our
talking about
intervention.
youth programs.
All
that
of
you
our
can-
intervention, if you
All
check
right.
the
All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
the 8,000 people who
Alright.
giving grants,
Okay.
we don't even know them from anywhere,
Okay.
and we'll be
Alright.
giving 7,500.
All right, okay.
Also,
thank you so much,
asset
Patrick.
transfer to
We'll
young
find
people.
time to come engage you, more. But then thank you so much for your coming this morning. And he is the Deputy Minister of Youth Affairs and Patrick and Jagila.
Thank
That
you
is
very
how we say goodbye. It has been Good Morning Sierra Leone, which came to you live from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation Television and through our social media handles. Many thanks to the entire production team, especially producer Daphne Zainab Kamara. I am Sheku Sumaila.
And my name is Francis Banadu. Have a lovely day, and many thanks to you all for being part of the program. Good morning.